See, one problem we've never had is Dad calling us to ask us how to use his phone.
No, not at all. Yeah.
In some cases, we have a computer problem.
We call him. Yeah.
Hey, this weird thing's happening. What do you think it is?
Thought about.
Well, go into command prompt, type this, do this, and then type. And tell me
I
what
thought
it
about
says.
calling him today with all this freaking issues I've been having with my phone and my computer. And
Right. Yeah.
Gosh, dang.
Yeah.
Welcome to Mead Talk.
Mead Talk.
Thank y'all so much for showing up tonight. We appreciate everybody here. Just in case you are not familiar with the Mead Talk, Mead Talk is a place where we get to all come together and discuss awesome conversations, sometimes difficult, sometimes fun, sometimes irrelevant, but it's all in good conscience. So, we believe that for thousands of years, people have come together to the same table and consume this wonderful beverage and discuss the hard topics of life. And when you don't discuss those hard topics, tension's built between people. So we believe it's a good spot to start. And so, just in case you don't know, where's that mic at, Robert? Where'd you
The
put
mic is right here on the corner of the stage, and there's that mic.
And
right
there's
there.
another mic out
So,
there.
Mike,
You can talk to that mic. He may not respond, but the mic up here will give us feedback.
So, with Mead Talk, we do it in front of a live audience, right? So, anybody who wants to get involved, talk, say something, there is a mic right there. All you got to do is flip the switch, and you are on the same recording that we are on. So, without further ado, let's get this Mead Talk started. We have the one, the only, the man who made all this possible, our Father.
I was going to say, if it wasn't for him and our mom, we wouldn't be here.
Yep. I mean,
Literally.
that's science.
Yes.
That's freaking science,
It's
right?
biological. Follow the science.
can't argue with that.
No,
Yes.
can't argue with that. You know, it's hard to call you by name because I've always called you Dad.
Yep.
So, but
And it's
Robert,
pretty easy to remember.
yeah, Robert Pollard, which your name is,
Robert Pollard.
yeah.
Wow. That's coincidental.
I know. It's almost like it's my dad.
Yeah. Almost.
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
You know?
So, you know, we've led and had a fantastic life with this man as our father, for sure. Always, you know, looking out for us and leading us the right direction. We may not have gone the right direction, and we may get to that. But I know I didn't. Robert was always the golden child, so, you know. I was always the authoritative, you know, rebel, yeah, in that sense.
I mean, I recall one time me and Dad got into it, and that was when I wanted to pierce my eyebrow.
Yeah.
That was the last time.
So, well, one thing that's really cool about our dad is he's achieved some pretty cool feats in his life. One of them is in powerlifting.
Yeah.
So, now, first of all, how old were you when you started powerlifting?
I was right around 47.
47? Make sure you're, like, right up in the mic.
Okay. 47.
47
roughly.
years old. So, you started at 47. When did you finally, like, get out of powerlifting?
It was about 3 years later, around 50, 51, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the last competition was, nationals. No, Georgia was the last competition. Nationals was before that. So 2011, I believe it was, when the tornado outbreak came through Alabama. Buddy of mine and myself, we were without power, and we said, hey, ain't no point in sticking around. Let's just go to nationals. So we went to nationals.
So, are you still like current record holder of Southeast?
I haven't checked lately, but I held 4 state records. when my first competition, I held 4 state records with a 405 deadlift.
405 deadlift? Mm-hmm. Dang.
And that was, when I first started, I was right around, my deadlifts were probably a little over 200 pounds. And
how long did it take you to get to 405?
405 was probably about 8 months, so roughly.
You doubled it in 8 months?
Yeah.
Less than a year.
Yeah, less than a year.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was incredible. And the training that I went through it's not your normal everyday made up on the fly training. It was actually it was derived from an Olympic coach who him and the guy that he was training he himself was a power lifter, but the Olympic coach was, of course, Olympic. And I don't know if anybody knows the difference, but briefly, Olympic lifting is essentially a lot of different types of lifts and not really isolated to a few. Powerlifting is isolated to a few. So Olympic lifting does things like clean and jerks and such, which are very they're very treacherous and dangerous type lifts. So essentially you're lifting, throwing it from the ground up to your chest and then from your chest up way over your head. So you can't lift as much doing stuff like that, but they are very dangerous because of the imbalance that you get when it's, you're top heavy basically when you do stuff like that. And basically their lifting style is a lot of jerking motion. It's very, very fast movements, which are very dangerous to your body in general. So they train differently than what we did. But powerlifting, essentially, the competition was USAPL Federation. They were the no cheating federation. They did not allow cheating at all, whereas some federations would allow people to get by with things like putting blocks inside their chest to under their clothing to raise where their bench press would go to.
Oh,
so
wow.
it wouldn't go down as far. And in the USAPL, when you bench press, you go all the way down, you touch your chest, and you wait until they call for you to push. So you've got a second or two of hesitation, which takes a lot out of you in that few little microseconds of a moment before you actually get to push it. So
Wow.
typically people will bounce it off their chest, and it doesn't take that much effort as much as it does.
So they don't even allow the bouncing off the chest. Like
Nope.
the big
Absolutely
arch
not.
and the bring it down and just pump up
Yep.
with their legs.
Exactly.
They don't allow that. You've
Right.
got to stop
and wait for the call. Yeah.
And that to me is a true bench.
Yep, absolutely. And a bench press was a 3-call lift. So you basically had to hover it over your body, straight armed, wait for them to tell you to start, drop it down, and then essentially when they said push, then you pushed, and then they told you to put it on the rack. So it's 3 calls basically.
Wow.
Yeah, so you didn't have the luxury of
Going at
throwing
your
it
own-
down and throwing it back up real quick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. That makes it much more difficult.
Oh, way more. And that's why they were really known as the no cheating federation. They did not allow any form of shortcuts.
So maybe explain to people what powerlifting actually
Okay.
is versus like bodybuilding or just regular working out.
Okay.
You did a little bit of that, but like
Right.
maybe a little more.
Well, I can tell you my story and how I got into it and what I saw and what I understood as the differences. And there's a lot of opinions out there, but we used to joke around with bodybuilders to say, we used to say, well, you look like you could lift a lot, but you really can't. And as versus powerlifters, which they don't look like they lift a lot, and they can really lift a lot.
I call it dumb muscle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pumping up the muscle to make it look strong, but it's not really as strong as it looks.
Right.
Some of these guys, when they lift and they bodybuild, and you look at their muscles, you're thinking, my gosh, they should lift 1,000 pounds with one arm, you know.
Right.
But they don't lift as much as power lifters do. And a part of that is because of the way they train and the differences. So going back to the story, I was in a gym in Decatur, Alabama, and a guy who's pretty much looked like a walking refrigerator asked me, he said, would you want to possibly power lift?
Y'all have a good night.
And
Thank you so much.
see you guys. Bye.
We love y'all. I did.
Absolutely.
And he asked me, he said, would you consider competing? And I said, did you see me? Have you seen me yet? He said, yeah. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm like this big around, you know, and a little tiny circle, and I'm not that big. He said, oh, no, that doesn't matter. He said, that doesn't matter. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you look like you have the potential to lift a lot of weight. And I said, yeah, but if you're talking about lifting a lot of weight compared to, let's say, 700-pound deadlifts and 800-pound squats and so forth, no, ain't no way. He said, no, I'm talking about you at your age, at your body weight, you look like you could really lift a lot. I said, okay, so tell me more. And so he explained that and to compete, to be competitive at powerlifting, you need to be able to lift 1.5 times your body weight in a bench, 2 times your body weight in a squat, and 2.5 times your body weight in a deadlift. And I said, that sounds a little bit more reachable. And he said, okay. And I said, let me think about it. And I went off and I did my thing that I usually do. And I thought I actually was like king of the training. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought, man, there ain't nobody out there who knows what I know, right? Little did I know. When I went back to him, I said, okay, let's do this. He said, okay. And the training program that he put me through, as I was mentioning previously, was an adapted version of Olympic powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and powerlifting combined. So essentially, the guy that the Olympic powerlifting coach trained the guy that trained me. So I'm basically a third level trainee from an Olympic
Third generation train.
Yep. And the program that they had us on essentially allowed me to gain very quickly and very solidly without injury. And we can talk about injuries later and how you recover. But basically, the way that we trained was not only our main muscle groups, but it also was minor muscle groups, which essentially are where you get most of your injuries. And so the differences are basically they're pretty vast differences. Bodybuilders, for instance, they lift, their regimen for training essentially consists of high reps, low weight, high reps, and a lot of sets. So when they do it, basically they're going for the pump and to make it look like you're strong, right? And so that basically pumps up the muscle, but it doesn't make it strong.
Yeah.
So the opposite of that is powerlifting. And in between there, you get Olympic lifting. So Olympic lifting is, I've never been through a training program for Olympic lifting, but essentially it probably is the same as all other exercise or federation or types of lifting. Is when you get into bodybuilding or something like that, you're always going to try to increase your weight and your reps and your sets, right, up to a certain point. So bodybuilding, like I said, you may do 15, 20 reps and maybe 6 sets, for example. And then in powerlifting, we only did 5 maximum reps with our main core lifts, and those are your bench, squat, and your deadlift. So those are the 3 main lifts that we trained for a competition, and those are the ones we competed with. So when we trained, we would basically work our way up a step process of a percentage for each time we got into the gym, and we would do 3 days a week, about 2 to 2.5 hours per day. And with just 3 days, I went from roughly a 200-pound deadlift all the way up to my last competition deadlift was 480 pounds.
That's wild.
So let's not confuse people out there that think, well, I just need to go hit the weights. Obviously, the body is, in a sense, a machine. So you had to have a certain lifestyle.
Absolutely.
You had to have the right protein, the complex carbs, the fibrous carbs. What was your diet during this process?
My diet actually was different than my buddies. I lifted with 3 other guys. 2 of them were young in their 20s, and 1 of them was a year older than I am. And I always watch what I eat. So my diet essentially consisted of high protein, high carb, but good carbs, not bad, and some fats. So essentially the fats were something like not meat fats, but mostly coconut oils and
like
avocados, yeah,
stuff like
and stuff like that. Good fats.
Yeah.
And essentially, there's a book out. There's a lot of material out there on deadlifting and diet, or powerlifting and diet. But there's a one particular book, I can't remember the name of it, but essentially they had a diet plan for every specific type of goal that you have. So your goal may be to just maintain a good fit, good physical fit. You may be a Olympic lifter, you may be a bodybuilder, or you may be a power lifter. And it supported, the diets were different from one to the other. So my diet essentially consisted, that was the macronutrients, but it consisted of a lot of chickens and rices and such. And then I would stay away from, high fatty foods, a lot of chemical additions.
Processed foods.
Processed foods. Mostly organic, trying to stay away from chemicals and so forth.
Were you taking any herbs or anything at the time?
Some like rhodiola and stuff like that for energy, and then eventually after you showed me what yerba mate does, that helped a lot as well.
Yerba mate is awesome.
Yeah.
If you don't know, yerba mate is quite fantastic.
That's the calm caffeine. That's the caffeine that doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't affect people in the jittery way.
No.
So yerba mate is the second most caffeinated plant in the world, right? But it also contains things like L-theanine, which is kind of a counteractive to all the negative side effects of caffeine, like the jitteriness and stuff. And actually, when you introduce caffeine and L-theanine together, you have something called alpha wave brain state that's chemically induced in the brain, right? So it induces alpha waves, which are like in the zone waves, right? So it's like every time a NBA player makes a three-pointer, like a swish, right? He's in the zone, right? Every time an artist is doing their masterpiece, they're in the zone. That's when they're producing alpha waves. And so you can chemically induce those by taking caffeine and L-theanine, which are naturally present in yerba mate. But it also has other metabolites like theobromine, which helps to dilate the blood vessels, and some other metabolites of caffeine already present in it, which help to mitigate a lot of the negative side effects that caffeine would have. And it's alkaline.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, and caffeine is like extremely acidic, right? Mm-hmm. And so, coffee is extremely acidic, right? So it can have a bunch of negative associations with it. Now, coffee can be good if it's used in like an herbal formula, but coffee by itself is really bad herbalism.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I love yerba mate. Yerba mate is it's awesome.
It's got 20. I think it's 21 or 22 vitamins and minerals. It
Yeah.
has 15 amino acids and a ton of antioxidants.
Yeah.
It's a very nutritious. So I stopped drinking coffee many years ago and started drinking yerba mate. And I drink smoked yerba mate. And I haven't told you to yet, but I just bought 35 pounds of yerba mate.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
But you started that, what, like 13 years ago now?
13 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Because I think it was in 2010 where I
Yeah.
left like a bunch of herbs with you.
Yeah, that was it.
And,
Yeah.
And that's probably, I think that's when you started
I
doing
started drinking
that.
it. Yeah, and I've been drinking it ever since, pretty much almost every day. I use it.
Every time I come to the house, you've got your nice little, what are the little?
The French press.
Yeah, you got the French press, and you fill up your cantina, and that's what you do.
I have a man-sized French press.
Yeah.
It's about 32 ounces.
That is a
and
nice French press.
I drink about 4 large cups, so the equivalent of probably 8 regular cups a day while I'm working.
Yeah.
And I used to buy 5-pound bags of yerba mate, and they stopped selling it, and they only sell it in the large, the bulk. I'm sorry, it's 33 pounds. So I calculated out my consumption rate, and I've got 2 years worth of yerba mate.
That's
now.
awesome.
So I cried a tear,
Yeah.
and then I went on. So the toughest problem I have now is how to preserve it, make sure it lasts.
Yeah.
But
Keep
anyway,
it nice and fresh.
Yeah. So the diet and basically, I think a lot of my gain really helped because of my diet and the way I did things, and I eventually, just up front to let you know, my last competition lift was in Georgia, and I did a 314 bench press, a 446 squat, and a 480-pound deadlift.
And just to give the people out here an idea of what that means, your age, your height, and
Yes.
your weight at the time.
165-pound weight class. And I was, at that point in time, I was about 50 years old. And let's see, what else?
So
Yeah,
you
that's it.
deadlifted 3 times your weight.
Yeah. I was at 3
Essentially.
times, yeah. So my
That's
buddy
wild.
said 2.5 times, I was at 3.
That's awesome.
So just for the record, just to let y'all know, has Matt or I ever come at our dad in a sense of, how some kids like to test their dad? No. We already knew that was a path we didn't want to go down.
Yeah.
We're
that
like,
was
no,
that was
we're
before
good.
the deadlifting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was before
And
that.
the
So
powerlifting
we
and stuff.
knew what was possible, so we just didn't go down that road. And plus, it does say in the Bible, honor thy father and mother.
Yeah.
I didn't do that very well
Yeah.
in my childhood.
Yeah.
I made a lot of mistakes. And I tried to run from those mistakes. And luckily, I had 2 really good parents that, didn't just throw me to the wayside. So
Yeah, and that's what it takes. It really takes that. And so essentially, I was at a chiropractor's. I've been going to chiropractor because I blew a disc. I have bulging disc from just normal life, crashing on mountain bikes and stuff like that. I'm 61 years old. I still don't know that I'm that age yet. I'll catch
No,
up
I
eventually.
mean-
I remember the one time that you got in a fight with a tree on your mountain bike and you lost.
You were there.
I
You were
was there.
That tree did not move. I don't know why, but it did not. It
I was
almost
going to
did.
say, you didn't see the tree, but the
Yeah.
tree didn't move.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, it didn't
I
move.
saw the tree. It
Yeah.
was exactly where it was when he hit it. Dad was
Not a chip in
near
it.
where he was when he hit it.
Yeah.
It was.
It was a solid tree.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was a good. It's a fun trail, really fun, but it's an extreme trail.
Yeah, it's very
And
dangerous.
so we get there at the top, and I'm like, we like to give each other a little space. So I was like, all right, go ahead, Dad. And I counted to about 3, and I start coming down the trail, and then I see him go up, and I hear, oh, and I'm like, oh, crap. So I hurry down there, and he's laying on the ground, and the bike's somewhere over here in the tree. Same spot
Same
it was.
spot.
The exact same spot.
And
Had a
then-
couple marks on it, but same
Yeah,
spot.
yeah. That's not to mention the crash that I had right before I crashed into the tree.
Yeah.
I came around a corner and I saw some ribs in the the dirt there, and I said, okay, well, I better lift up the front end a little bit, and all of a sudden, I'm going over the left side of the handlebars, slammed down on the ground, picked it up, said, I'll be doggone if that's going to get me. Got back up on it and did another crash. So, 2 of them in a row.
Yep.
We got to have it do it right.
Let's see, that was, how long is that trail?
About 3 years.
Well,
Broke.
how long's the trail?
How long is the trail? It's probably about almost a mile.
That
probably,
one's about a mile, and that was in the first, eighth of a mile that all happened?
Yeah, very quickly.
And you had what injuries after Mom made you go to the doctor? What injuries did you wind up having?
Finally, tore an ACL, which was stage 2, and in stage 3, they have to do surgery. And I also broke a rib.
And he wound up walking. He couldn't ride. We wound up walking the bike down the rest of the trail to the vehicle.
Well, up the hill, because I couldn't pop wheelies over the roots.
Right.
And then when we got up to the top of the hill, then I rode all the way back to the car. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a different generation for all the young folk out there.
Yeah.
The young folk would have call a helicopter. I'm dying.
I'm about
I
to
can't
say-
take the pain.
I'd say Gen Z would have been medevaced out of there.
Yeah,
you know.
Gen Z they would have been like, I'll pay the bill. No, I won't. The rest of everybody else will. That's socialism. So but no, he got on the bike, rode it till he could, walked the rest of the way, put the bikes up, went home.
Yeah.
And it was a while before Mom finally said, "Okay, I'm done. Go to the doctor."
It was the next day.
And
she was
just so
mad.
you guys know, in case you didn't catch it, that was mountain biking at Oak Mountain.
Mountain biking.
Yeah,
On
One of-
Lightning.
on
Lightning
Lightning, one
Trail.
of the fun trails with the
Yes.
jumps and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm anxious to get back out there.
Yep.
It took me probably about 4 months to recover, and then I got back out on
And
Lightning.
we were right back out there.
See,
Lightning.
it's wild to me that you said you're 61 because I still see you as like maybe 50. I don't know.
Right.
Like,
I'll take it.
yeah,
I'll take it.
I mean,
if we called Dad and said, "Hey, we're going to jump out of a plane tomorrow. Are you there?" Yeah, I'm there. I'm there. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm waiting on you guys.
Right.
Yeah.
jeez.
With or without a parachute, just let me know.
Yeah. We can adapt. We'll figure it out.
We'll aim for water. We're good.
Yeah.
Yep, snowboarding. I know you'll be there for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. I'm a snowboarder. Mountain rock climbing.
Yep.
Yeah. When we lived in California, my boys they did some mountain their rock climbing and snowboarding and such.
Yep.
Matt was really good at it. I really enjoyed watching him.
I dislocated an elbow and was climbing 2 weeks later.
Yeah, yeah, and Matt he loved it so much, and I tried doing some of the stuff he did and decided I didn't want to do it anymore.
Actually,
We're talking about the snowboarding. Yeah.
Matt has climbed with a world-renowned climber.
Yeah, Alex Hinalda.
I did too,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we used to
we
climb with
climbed
him.
with him, yeah.
Yeah,
I know. I met him briefly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we climbed with him quite a bit.
Climbed with
Yeah.
him a lot.
Yeah,
Mhm.
He's climbing El Capitan.
Yeah.
free climb.
With no
Free climb.
with
There's
no rope.
hey, there's another guy that just did it too, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, he was.
Was it that Swedish guy?
Yeah, he's from
Yes.
another country. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's wild. He's
That,
wild.
that is a whole new
He's
level.
almost that guy that he's smoking a cigarette as he's climbing up.
Yeah,
Freestyle,
yeah, just
yeah.
like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And I told Alex, I said, ain't no way I am going to do something like he just laughs.
Well, it was really cool because when we climbed with him, he was like just starting to get into free climbing, those big
Just getting in
slopes,
there.
those big faces and everything. So that was really cool. And then Graham, the one that was there too,
Graham.
and he died. Graham died. Didn't he slipped in the shower and broke his neck or
Oh, yeah,
something?
it was some freak accident.
It's
wasn't
so
it?
crazy.
Yeah, I remember
He was
that.
like super good at rock and
Oh,
climbed
yeah.
with Alex all the time, and then like freaking all the
Freak
sudden,
accident.
freak
Mhm.
accident, slipped
Yeah.
in the shower. You climb like these big old even
Mountains and
100-foot face of a rock,
Yeah.
you know, it's certain death. But then you slip in the shower and break your neck.
Yeah. After about 15, 20 feet, it gets really, really dangerous from that point out.
Yeah.
And there's a point of no return. If you slip, you're gone.
Yeah.
Well, I was
That's
going to
it.
say, when we were at the gym, when I dislocated my elbow, I was only, 10 feet up?
Yeah,
And I was
maybe.
just doing a crossover on an
Yeah.
arc.
Yeah.
and I fall, and it was rubber ground too.
Yep, yep.
Like when I fell, we hit the cut up rubber and dislocated my elbow.
Yeah.
Like I remember that because you were sitting there talking to what was the manager's name?
Oh, I can't remember.
Charlie,
his
was it
name.
Charlie?
It might have been, yeah.
And you were sitting there talking to him, and I look up and I'm like, Dad, and you're like, yeah, no, try again. I said, no, Dad. And my arm
It was out of
is
place.
back here, and you're, oh, crap. You know, yeah. And I get up, and it pops itself back into place. And at that point,
You were in some pain.
yeah, at that point, that's when it hurt. It wasn't. It didn't hurt when it was out of socket. It hurt when it was back in socket.
Yeah.
And then we get to the hospital because Mom wanted us to go check, make sure we
Oh,
didn't
of course.
pinch anything, you know. And I was thinking, no, I'm good. It's back in. I'm good. You know, go to the hospital, and here they do. They say, I was like, can I have anything for the pain? And they hand me these 2 little pills, and I'm like, no, I'm good. Take it away. I'm good. I'll live.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later, we're all back in the gym.
Yeah.
climbing.
Thank y'all so much for coming out. We appreciate
Good
you.
night. Y'all be
Guys.
careful.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate y'all. Roll
So,
Tide.
so one of the things that you've always taught me
Not
in
Alabama
life.
fans.
One of the things you've always taught me in life, Dad, was balance. You know, balance in everything that you do.
Yeah.
And I've tried to instill that in my children. I've tried to teach people that as much as possible. So what does that look like? You know, how do you perceive that balance to be in life?
In life, in general, there's a ton of examples you can use, but a general approach to it is essentially don't go too extreme on either end so that you can be objective enough to find exactly the truth rather than biased opinions that may or may not be accurate.
So you believe that there is an objective truth to things?
Absolutely, yeah. And there's absolute truths, but
Yeah.
essentially the balance is not just in truth seeking, but many other forms. But you know, you have to take the approach of thinking about things. When you think about things, and the situation scenarios that you can run into on a daily basis, you really can work things out and come to better conclusions and take better actions. In and of itself, a reactive action gets you in a lot of trouble.
And I tell people all the time, like if you live your life upon emotions and make your decisions based off emotions, you live on a roller coaster
Absolutely
your entire
do.
life.
Yeah.
But if you take consistent action in one direction, your emotions then follow.
Absolutely.
Which, you know, you and Mom have actually, you know, y'all been like the best parents anybody could ask for. And now that I have kids, and I remember Mom saying when we're growing up and we would do things, well, I can't wait till you have kids like you so that you know what it's like.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, no, that'll never happen. I mean, I've seen how y'all have raised us, and I'm going to raise them that way. And for example, I go the other day, and
You want water or anything?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
So I go to I've got some Yoo-hoos hiding in the house because I don't drink them much, but I like them ever so often. And Cynthia's mom gave us some from when she closed down the skating rink, and I go to put them in the deep freezer downstairs to get them to chill so I can grab one and watching a movie downstairs. And I open the deep freezer, and the deep freezer's off. The deep freezer has like 30 pounds of chicken in it. It's got like 5 pounds of bacon in it. It's got a whole bunch of stuff in there, and the deep freezer's not on. And I look up, and there's a camera plugged in on top of the freezer.
Oh, man.
I'm like, why is the deep freezer unplugged, and we have a camera plugged in on top of the freezer?
Wow.
So the food's almost thawed out in the deep freezer, and I plug the freezer back in, of course. I feel the food. It's cold, but it's not frozen. And I asked Cynthia, why is there a camera plugged in on top of the freezer and the freezer's unplugged? I don't know. We have hundreds of dollars of food in the freezer. I don't remember who unplugged it. So you come to, in that situation, the reaction. Hundreds of dollars of food in this deep freezer.
Yeah.
That has been unplugged.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the children didn't think about what could possibly be plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
Just follow the cord.
Yep.
Or look at the light down there that's green that says I'm plugged in. And when you pull a plug and it goes off, it's like, well, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't unplug that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's kids aren't worried about that.
Right.
But as a parent, it's like hundreds of dollars of food in the freezer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a camera. Good. We can see everything.
Yeah.
We can see our lives fade away because you're
Yeah.
going to starve
Yep.
because you
Right.
thawed all the food out and it went bad.
Yeah.
So it comes to that reaction, and I was livid.
Mm.
Who plugged the camera in? I don't remember.
Typical. Yeah.
And that was part of my comment. Nobody in this house remembers anything. Nobody. So you have to learn. And it may be a quick, you get it out, you yell, you scream, you
Mm-hmm.
But then when it comes to the actual situation, you're like, it's yeah, I want to get a belt and chase them up and down the road.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you understand that's not the best course of action.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I need you to think about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If your mom tells you to do something, I need you to look at what you're doing. I need you to focus on what you're doing. I need you to understand that your mom and I work very, very hard to provide for you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do something like this, that takes away from what we're trying to provide.
Yep.
And you learn real quick. And I'll be honest. It was 20 minutes after that I went upstairs to use the restroom, and I thought, there's no way I was that bad to my parents. There's no way I acted that way.
I like to put it in time frames so that they can really understand the multitude of like what the consequences, right? So like it's like, look, if it's $500 worth of food that's in this freezer, that's 5 days of work for me. That's 5 days that I had to spend away from you doing something completely different that I would rather have been with you doing, but I was working so that we could have a house, food, travel, all these things that you like to have and experience, internet, games, whatever you want, those sort of things. That's all of that time that I spent just to acquire what we have here, and it could possibly be gone now. And that's important. And I think it's extremely important because, when and then you if you're like, okay, well, if I was just to say, go to your room and spend 5 days in your room without TV, without anything, that's a lot of time. And they realize, I would get so bored not doing anything in my room. I'd go crazy. I'm like, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of value. And you try to place that value on time as well and what they do with their time and everything. But I like to put things into a time perspective for people.
So what both of you talked about just now is very good examples of balance on both sides. So you guys exercised balance in essentially not going over the deep end and clearing the house.
Yeah.
And using that self-control, you thought about, wait a minute, how can I really get through to them? And both of you are very good at that. So you went to them and you explained. And the whole of the problem is that they didn't have to work to earn that thing that they were destroying. And therefore they didn't think about that thing that they were destroying and how much work it would take for them to replace it. And that's kids. And what you guys are doing is perfect because you're not extremely going off the deep end and basically pushing them away versus
Right.
giving them something to think about, which essentially approaching a child from the intellectual perspective gets through to them way better. But sometimes
You will.
know,
You got to whoop 'em.
sometimes you got to
Yeah.
whip them. Exactly.
And,
Yep.
and I mean, and that's one thing is, I'm under the impression no pain, no gain, right? But also the more pain, the more gain. Usually that's in reference to like, pushing yourself and the pain that you have to go through
Yeah.
in order, or like a crucible, right? So I talk about crucibles a lot with people. I'm like, a crucible is something that you go through that's extremely difficult in life, but on the other end, you end up 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
And so, you might have to experience some pain, but through that pain, you learn the consequences of your actions, but you also learn how to become better through that experience. Now, you have to have the right mindset through it, but that's where this is your punishment. You're going to experience some pain here, but on the other side of that, this is why, and this is what you need to learn from it.
I think from what I understand and know of how you guys approach your kids and discipline and I believe that scenario basically is the way God deals with us as well. And
Right.
Yeah.
no pain, no gain. I have learned a lot over the years about how God disciplines and how He takes care of it. But essentially, it boils down to when we're at our worst, that's when we learn the most, and that's when the lessons really take. And you guys are teaching your children that concept, and not just in physical, but also other forms of pain. Basically like taking things away from them. Sometimes it works, a lot of times it doesn't. But it's a variation and combination depending on the child, how they react and how much they hang on to and cling to things that they really enjoy. If you take it away, then that hurts them way deeper than a spanking.
Well, that's like and it's happened. Like I know you and Mom when we were young, you did the same thing, but spanking the child isn't the first resort. That's the last
I got a
resort.
lot more whoopings.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
You weren't an angel,
No.
but
I remember the first time I got grounded, I lit a fire in the woods and almost blew up a house because they had a gas leak.
Yeah.
That's right across from where you have the house now, is that those woods up the hill. That was the first time I ever got grounded.
I was never that bad.
Yeah. So
Well, I did try to set Grandview on fire
Well,
that one
I was
time, but
messing
that's
around-
beside the point.
I was messing around with fireworks and hairspray.
yeah,
And stuff.
that'll happen. But that's and like you and Mom, like I have, and me and Cynthia have, like, after you spank them, one, you never want to do that when you're angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an after effect. That's I'm mad. Go away. Give me a second. Then we're gonna discuss your
Punishment.
punishment.
Yeah.
We're gonna discipline you. And then when you spank them, and it hurts them. It hurts them a lot.
Oh yeah.
And then it's, well, let me explain to you why I had to do what I had to do. And I've told Preston and JJ many times. I've told them, look, it's my job to make sure that you grow up to be respectable young men. What you did was way out of line. That is not acceptable in society.
Yep.
So I have to correct it. I have to make sure
Well,
that when you bring a girl home and you're like, Mom, Dad, I think I'm going to marry her, that you're going to give her the life that she deserves. And that you're not going to be in prison. And that you're not going to be you're not going to live this lifestyle. So that's my job.
well, and it sucks every time you have to do it. It's not something you want to do.
Right.
That's
Right.
why it's the last resort.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So-
go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question because this is something I recognized every morning when I woke up. You were sitting down, eating your bowl of cereal, flipping through the Bible. How many times have you read the Bible? Do you know?
I believe at least 4 times in about 10 years
About 10
completely
years.
through. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Mhm.
That's amazing. But that's something you've been consistent with.
Yeah, you have to be.
Since I can remember.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I mean, I fell away from God in my teenage years, and mostly after the Army, and we had a lot of arguments about that because
Dad and I
you
talked a lot
called me-
about your New Age stuff.
yeah, you called me New Agey and
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
stuff, and I mean, at one point, I didn't even believe Jesus was a person that lived and walked on this earth,
Right.
and which is wild because when you follow the evidence, it's like, okay, well, that's stupid. Think it's like there's over
indisputable.
yeah, there's over 5,200 verifiable documents that confirm he was a living person,
Right.
and then it's like, okay,
Other religions actually confirm him.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, like, so I sat down with our kids today, and so we didn't go to church today. I had some time to spend with them, and I was like, okay,
Yeah, I
look,
was praying for you while I was there.
yeah. Well, this is what we did. We went to IHOP. We spent some time together and
Yeah.
stuff. We came back home, and then we put on some Bible verses and Bible stories and stuff like that. And we went over them, but it's like kids, videos for Bible stories, right? And before it even started, because it said Bibles or stories of the Bible for kids or whatever, and I was like, wait. I said, let's address this first and foremost. These are not stories.
Yeah. Exactly.
These are historical accounts
Yep.
that have been verified. 5,200 documents, over 5,000 documents that explain and show by eyewitnesses that these are real.
Yeah.
From
Real
multiple
people.
regions,
From multiple regions,
multiple
places.
societies.
Yeah, just all over the place. Thank y'all so much. Hey, I want to see y'all too
Robbie,
here.
Alex, hey, don't be strangers now.
Yeah.
If
Those
it
two,
takes you that long to come in.
those two
again,
right there. Those two right
I'm
there.
just gonna have to forget who you are, and we're gonna have to reintroduce ourselves.
They got to try the mead before we ever opened this
Before we even
place.
started.
They followed us out into a parking lot.
Yes.
Awesome.
And tried the
took
mead
a
out of
blind
out
leap
of
of faith
yeah.
and drank something out of a bottle out of the back of a truck.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And
Yes.
and
yes.
since then they've been fans. And
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
so we're super appreciative of you guys.
Take care.
All right,
All right,
man.
guys.
Y'all
Glad
take
to
it
see
easy.
y'all again, man. Y'all be careful.
Be safe. But yeah, and so yeah, at one point I was just lost. I believed in other gods. I believed in nothing at one point, and it was just it was following a lot of propaganda that was put out there, and I was having this talk with somebody else a while ago, and they're like, okay, so you're telling me that propagandists are just so incredibly good at what they do that all these people from around the world just believe that propaganda is real, and because they're so good at putting it out there. And I was like, well, let me put it to you this way. I said, either your propagandist is really good or my propagandist is really good, because we both believe two totally different things and have evidence to prove it.
Yep.
Said, so either of the one is true. Appreciate you, brother. Let's get that cornhole tournament started, man.
JJ.
But yeah, he was like, yeah, that's pretty interesting how that you said that. I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, one of us is wrong, and I mean, I'm not going to say I'm wrong, but at least I'm open to the fact of studying what you study and learning it, because, I mean, somebody's wrong here,
Yep.
right? And I'm pretty adamant on my faith and where I stand. But, I've also seen things that people consider conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah.
And that whole idea of conspiracy theories is, it's a funny one in and of itself, but
yeah, it's messed up, really. Conspiracy theory. The term was actually invented by the CIA back in the '60s to discredit anybody that actually questioned the JFK assassinations. The CIA.
That's what it was.
Did a
It wasn't
campaign.
MK Ultra. It was
Yep,
JFK.
yeah, and it was essentially for the purpose of stopping any kind of investigation, because there was a lot of reporters, news reporters, that were actually asking questions, and they had to do something to throw them off the trail. And then how many years later, we're talking, 40, 50, 60 years later, now they're finding out that it was absolutely a conspiracy, which essentially the term conspiracy doesn't mean true or false.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with truth or false.
All it has to do is that it's against the government, right?
It's the definition essentially states that it's more than one person, two or three or more, getting together to do another group of people harm, basically. So, and you can find that definition in the government. You can find it in corporations. You can find it in a lot of places.
The liberals are a conspiracy?
Essentially, yeah, and they don't understand the term, so they use it, and pretty much every posting online will use the word conspiracy or conspiracy theorist to reference crazy.
Yes.
To essentially the actual movie by Mel Gibson
I was going to bring that up.
is essentially the same thing, a conspiracy theorist. So what was really funny about the movie, and we always discount movies as, it's just TV, right? Just Hollywood.
Just entertainment.
But they absolutely have a way of telling truth through those movies, and when you don't realize it.
We can go all the way back to Lion King, right? Where when the dust kicks up and it spells out sex in the
Yes.
dust on Lion King.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would it be so evident? Why would they put it out there so strongly? It doesn't make any sense,
And you know
other
about-
than to propagate some sort of
You know
Agenda.
about Aladdin,
agenda.
right?
Yep.
What's that?
You know about Aladdin?
I mean,
When he jumps up on the balcony and he first meets her on the magic rug, if you turn the volume up and you listen closely, after he says something, in the background you'll hear a whisper, "Take all your clothes off."
yeah.
Yeah. So that is
so
hidden.
they're selling the motivation for sex to children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even that was 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
wild to
Yeah.
think about what they were doing then. Think about what they're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely.
with all the things that they can do in Hollywood now. Like, it was amazing to see the feat of like the Matrix and stuff, with all the CGI and everything that they were able to accomplish in that. But nowadays it's like you can do anything you want, AI generated stuff, all that stuff, and integrate it into subliminal messaging and all that stuff. It's crazy
what?
to think what they can do.
While we have a little bit of time, I'm going to bring this up to Dad.
All right.
Me and Matt were talking last night. Matt wants a new computer. I found a Mac Pro on Mac of all trades, $4,000, 12 terabyte SSD, 768 gigs of RAM,
Mac Pro.
two 32 gig video cards,
Two
NVIDIA's.
Duo.
But they're 32 gig RAM video cards, $4,000. Matt's like, I need that. I said, why? It'll do everything I need to do.
Right.
Yeah. You won't even touch half of what that can do.
You want him to do a fraction of what it
Yes.
Right.
That's
But I
for
do a
that-
lot of
that-
video editing,
that-
okay?
Yes. Video editing. Great. He's like, well, what about the 8K? That's a walk in the park for that.
Yeah.
That is for
It said
CGI.
Yeah.
it said it
Oh,
can
yeah?
run 12 monitors, and it can
8. That one can do 8 monitors.
No, it can run 12, or was it 8?
That was 8 monitors.
And it can stream
But
12
it's 8K monitors.
Wow.
8K monitors
Incredible.
stream at the same time.
Yes.
Sounds about right for something like that.
Yes.
And I was like, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Because I'm so sick
He's like,
of my damn laptop.
I need it to do. I was like,
Yeah.
Matt, I pulled up a MacBook Pro. It's a 2021, 64 gigs of RAM. It had the M2 Pro Max. This will do everything you need to do for video editing. No, that's what I need.
Well, he doesn't want to be limited.
No, right?
So I was like, great. Hey, if you're going to do CGI in the future, you're great.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what that's for.
Producing movies.
I told him
Yes.
what I was going to do is I was going to buy that, quit my job,
Yeah.
so that I could produce stuff to make money to pay for
There you
it
go.
and pay for
Yeah.
my job income.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
768 gigs of RAM.
That's all.
Most people can't comprehend what that is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most people see 32 gigs of RAM and they're
Right.
like, whoa.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
760.
When I saw 16 on my laptop, I thought it was a big deal. Okay, and that's why I got it.
But I got 32 for a reason, for video editing.
And just think with
And
And
Okay.
you won't let me video edit.
that. Yeah. Okay.
By the
okay.
way,
will.
I need to bring it for the next one. We're going to try it on mine.
totally.
So just keep in mind that 768 gigabytes of RAM can be also partitioned out for actual disk space.
Yeah.
So you essentially can run a disk inside of RAM.
Yeah.
And there's software to do that. And we're talking about blazing, blistering fast.
So,
top of
but
the
it has 12
12
terabytes of SSD.
SSD.
Yeah.
SSD is twice the speed of mechanical,
Right.
but you can even speed it up more by using the RAM as a disk.
Yeah.
That's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
See what I mean? I can render a 20 or 30 or 40 gigabyte video like that.
Look, all I know is I would benchmark that just because I want to see the benchmark on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That would be measured in millions of flops, basically.
Yes. that would be jaw dropping. What on God's green earth am I looking at? How fast can it actually be? Well, that's as fast as it can be because that's ridiculous.
So at 120 hertz refresh rate of the screen, you could probably not even see a flash before it was finished.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I told her. I said, you don't understand. It will read your mind.
Yeah. You got to watch it.
It will be so fast it will read your mind.
That would be really great because then I wouldn't have to do a whole lot.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So there you go. You know, we could talk about technology all night, but quantum computing systems. Yeah, we're talking. That's levels above. That's multitudes of levels above anything that we have
But-
nowadays.
Yeah, before we go into this, what is it that you do for a living?
I am a.
Make sure you're in the mic.
Oh, okay. I am a big data administrator. So essentially, I manage a cluster of servers that act as one, and they actually store large amounts of data. So we're at about a 1.4 petabyte storage capacity.
what?
Right now.
In
What is
case
that
anybody
petabyte?
doesn't know what a petabyte is, everybody should know what a terabyte is. Now multiply a terabyte
1,000.
by 1,000. That is a petabyte.
So it's essentially 1,400 terabytes.
Yes. And a terabyte, in case anybody doesn't know what a terabyte is, multiply a gigabyte
By 1,000.
by 1,000.
So it's like the kilo system or the
Exactly.
kilometer
in
system.
all technicalities, it's by 1,024.
24. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Now,
That's crazy.
just so that's like saying I have a megabyte, I have $1 million, and then saying, wait, I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to bump it up a notch to a gigabyte.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's a
have
billion.
10 million. Well, no, you're right. Yeah, that's a billion
By 1,000.
Billion.
by 1,000. So then I'm going to bump it up one more time.
It's a trillion.
I have a trillion. Then I'm going to bump it up one more time for a petabyte.
Mm-hmm.
A gajillion?
I don't think we have a term for that, but we'll go with
We
a
do.
gajillion.
No, we do.
We do.
I think it is a gajillion.
It might be a gajillion.
and then it's like I don't even know what it's after that, but
Yeah.
I've seen it far beyond that.
Right.
I can't remember what the terms are though.
Yeah.
But we do
So
have a.
That's
Well, then you get into the power of because it's just so
right
much.
because there's so many zeros.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's where we're at on a petabyte.
That's pretty wild.
Oh yeah, and the data that is being there's metrics out there that you can actually look up that our data intake and ingestion has increased 100 times in less than 10 years. So essentially,
But that's what society's going to is all online, and which you work for a bank.
Mhm.
So that's where society's going to is all online, all digital.
yeah, yeah,
Access at your fingertips. You can even get a loan now online. You can transfer money quickly online. Everything's online. There's a lot of transfer of data.
Absolutely.
The grandmas, same as granddaddy's. Oh, the percentage? Oh, grandma's is 12. Sorry. But yeah, that's pretty wild. That's fast. That's intricate. So, what do you think about all this AI stuff that's coming out?
I think that AI, if you look at it on the surface, is a good thing, and it's like all things. Whether you're talking about defense or whether you're talking about defense or whether you're talking about any technology or anything, in the hands of good people, it's good. In the hands of bad people, it's bad. And essentially, there are both that are implementing it, and AI essentially is in both fields. And AI in a company is a great thing. It absolutely helps to size up the company's status and indicators that are good business indicators that help them make decisions very quickly and much more intelligent decisions and more in the same amount of time. In the hands of, let's say, the military, that's a whole different ballgame. In the hands of the government, a whole different ballgame. So essentially, there's a lot of uses for it. And AI in and of itself is a good thing. And there's actually, good AI that is available to the average Joe. There's AI that's not available to anybody but governments or large corporations. Quantum processing is one of those that essentially is well above AI, and essentially they have been saying that it doesn't exist for a long time, and now there's several companies that have them, and the processing power of quantum is light years above anything that is out there right now in the silicon world.
So I saw something that was really cool. Basically, somebody took an overlay of like quantum computer processing, and they did like this. They did like a map, and they mapped out all the different links and stuff that it could do, right? And it just looks like a bunch of threads, right? Mapping out to all these different processes that it could do, right? Mm-hmm. And then they took the human brain, and they mapped out something very similar, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like, it looked similar, but it was like way more intricate, right? Mm-hmm. It was close in the way that it operated, but it was way more intricate. Mm-hmm. But then they took, and this was the really cool part, they took the Bible and they mapped out all the prophecies of the Bible that have been fulfilled over the last 4,000 years, and it looked very similar to the brain. It was wild how they mapped it out, and they folded it over and stuff, and it's like, wow. It's like, yeah, I mean, it was just, it was phenomenal.
I believe that, I believe that, Quantum processing essentially works in qubits rather than bits, and essentially, I could get really deeper with it, but what it boils down to is more things can happen at the same exact amount of time in a quantum system versus a standard silicon-based system. So with the processing power they have, there's many reasons for using that kind of power, but it's going to become more common for companies to adopt it, and AI in and of itself will be a part of the process. But AI has been around for much longer.
See, I've always had a problem calling it AI because intelligence to me implies cognitive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. True.
It's more of an artificial thought process because we as cognitive are telling the computers how to think, go through these processes to figure something out. They're not actually intelligent. They're going through a thought process that we've programmed into them to say, hey, basically it's a process of elimination. And then once you get through that process of elimination, then you come to a conclusion.
Well, but if it creates its own processes.
But it doesn't.
No.
We have to tell it how to create a process.
You just tell it, yeah, I get, yeah.
So AI is essentially a step above that, where it actually starts coming up with things that it wasn't told to do.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And then you got quantum processing, essentially, that appears to be a combination of both, but way above AI.
And see, do I think artificial intelligence can exist? Yes, because if it can rewrite its programming to become more efficient, that would be artificial intelligence.
Well, and essentially the rule of thumb is when it becomes self-aware, and that's
Yeah.
all these movies that we've had about
Singularity
Terminator
is,
and all of this.
Yeah.
iRobot and stuff like that.
yeah, a lot of people think there's a point of like singularity where
Terminator with Skynet,
yeah.
Well, I mean, absolutely.
The Matrix.
There's bits of truth in everything, and
Yes.
essentially, that kind of AI exists. Now, I was told by a military person that anything that we see that is the most advanced thing we've ever heard, that's newest and latest and greatest, the military is about 50 years ahead.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and at least 50.
Well,
So
not a lot of
that's
people know that
scary.
the military
Absolutely is.
The military is the one that introduced the World Wide Web. They had been using that for years, and then
Yeah.
they finally let it out to the public.
Well, I mean, as example, the military usage of technology, back in the, I think it was mid-'90s, we were in Huntsville, your mom and I.
Yeah. You worked
and-
on the Redstone Arsenal.
Yeah, and the Redstone Arsenal was actually the Army was actually demonstrating in the mall, in the Huntsville Mall, of their technology. And I had never heard of lasers being used as weapons. And they actually had a plate, it was a 1/4 inch thick, that had a hole that appeared to be about 5 or 6 inches in diameter, that was absolutely burned through that piece of steel. And there was no dripping like it would melt it or anything. It was just completely clean.
Like
all the way through.
disintegrated.
Yeah, completely. And I asked them, I said, what did that? They said a laser. And that was, 40 years ago, roughly. So what do they have? Yeah, what do they have now? So,
Wow.
And they were
And we've
displaying
done
that.
a lot of work on the Redstone Arsenal.
Yeah. There's a lot
Since
going
then.
on there.
Yeah.
Well, I worked on the Redstone Arsenal with several different contractors of the government, worked with the government indirectly. I worked on MLRS, or MRLS, I can't remember, multiple launch rocket system, MRLS, and targets system, and I wrote software for both of those government organizations. And the stuff they had back then was incredible. It was amazing at what they did.
Yeah.
So,
One thing I want to address too is that you've never really had, before you got into all of this, like any formal education, right?
nope.
Like you
Self-taught.
Yeah, mostly, or most what you had was just high school
Self-taught.
education.
Yep, high school, and I had an electronics course and a diploma course in how to fix electronic circuits, and I learned electronic theory, or electronic theory, basically how electrons moved in atoms, and all the way up to how it moved through components and stuff. And I had 3 months of college to learn that much basics, and everything else from there is self-taught. So I self-taught software programming and so forth.
That's always been super cool to me, because anybody can walk into a library and learn what they want to learn.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
and it's wild. I remember you just always having like these massive books
Yeah.
of like Oracle
Yeah.
and Linux
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just like all this coding and stuff. And I'm like, I
Well,
don't
that's-
understand a thing
That's
that's
why
in
I
this.
went to school for what I did when I went for software engineering or software applications programming, is because it was easy. Because, I mean, Dad and I, when I was, 8, I think we rebuilt an Apple IIe.
Yeah.
And, it's when he had the Sun Machine, I was learning Oracle.
Yeah, that thing, that freaking beast.
When you watch, when you watch Jurassic Park, what is she using? She's using Oracle.
Yeah.
To lock everything up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when he has a Sun microsystem sitting in the house,
Yeah.
the same thing that's on this multi-million-dollar movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it, and she's like, "Well, I need to do this," and she starts typing code, and you're looking at it like, "Okay, yeah, that's kind of legit. All right, yeah,
Yeah, you're analyzing it.
exactly."
And I watched that segment, and I was like, oh, you don't do it like that. That
Right.
doesn't work like that. But it's pretty cool
It is.
anyway.
Yeah.
They introduced the right names. You
Yeah.
got the Oracle, the Sun Microsystems, you know, and then which we all know that it's not easy because Mom called you one time. Hey, I need to shut it down. How do I do that? Well,
Oh, my goodness. I almost got out of the pool from the gym and walked back and did it, but I finally talked her through it. Yeah.
it was not a click shutdown.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not how you do that.
No. It was lightning, and I made it a practice of shutting systems down and disconnecting them from the electrical outlets. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
basically what they used on Jurassic Park was actually Apple's first Unix implementation
Yeah.
called AIX, Apple interface. Yeah, it was amazing at what they did then, but then they completely overhauled it. And then I always said, when I worked for Apple, I always said, it'd be nice if they would actually combine Unix and Apple's interface together, and they did. We used a
Right.
open BSD Unix implementation and combined it with a graphical interface, and it was amazing.
That's why people always look at me and I tell them, I hate Windows. Why? Well, if you understood the foundation of Windows and the foundation of Mac, then you would understand why I hate Windows.
Yep, absolutely. And Apple wrote the book on human interface guidelines essentially to indicate to programmers and guide them in writing software to interface with human beings much better than what another company could copy and try to duplicate. And they couldn't do it that well because they didn't understand that psychology that Apple did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Now we're speaking a little bit above Matt.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. A little bit. For sure.
Yeah.
We got off subject, but
That's
it
what
was
we
good
do here.
stuff.
No,
Good
it's
stuff.
not. No, it's totally on subject.
What we do
yeah,
at
yeah,
Mead
yeah.
Talk.
Totally
Yeah,
on
yeah.
subject.
Whatever
We
subject
just
is.
talk.
Yeah.
The subject
Random
is
subject.
whatever we talk about.
Random subjects.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's why I wish Linux. I love Linux.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
played with it for
Yeah.
a long. I even installed it on my PS3 at one point. And I had Ubuntu running on my PS3.
Yeah.
Had it on my laptop. Took Windows off. Installed Linux.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow Dog, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for?
Technical.
It is very technical. You have it's not just a double click to install. It's not an exe file.
Yep.
You don't just unzip it and install it. No, it's you have to go into the command line and you have to tell it where it's at, what it is,
Yep.
unpack it,
Yep.
install it.
Yep.
But
Oh,
it's
no.
not just that. The community, it's open source. So
Excellent
if
community.
you ever have a problem, hey guys, I got this problem, and you've got guys on there that have been probably even helped develop it.
They
say,
wrote,
hey, do
yes,
this,
absolutely.
do this. This is what's going to fix it.
Linus Torvald, he actually contributes still.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
But it's a lot more user friendly now.
it is. Yeah, now there's a lot better.
A lot better graphics interface.
Yeah,
you know.
GUI.
Yeah,
and
yeah, a lot better. Yeah.
Not as technical.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I've got a phone I need y'all to look at. I'm gonna have to find it and show you. Company that's making it's completely offline, completely secure. They got a whole.
I've heard about it.
It's proprietary, but the software is based off of Unix and everything like that. But it still accepts a lot of the apps and everything that we use these days. But it's extremely secure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and security, basically, Linux is more secure than Windows, and I'll probably get a lot of blowback, but I know from experience that the open community in Linux can actually get any kind of security holes plugged in a matter of days
Right.
and have it out to the public. Whereas I researched one particular security hole that was extremely serious in Windows, and it had been 12 years since they first introduced it.
Wow.
And Microsoft would not even acknowledge it existed anymore, but it was still there. So, and that's just one example, and that was about 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
So, you understand they're probably a little bit more secure, but still, and yeah.
And see, which is one
notorious.
of the main reasons too that I prefer Mac over Windows. Is Mac's not impenetrable, but they're a lot more secure than Windows.
Yeah.
Mainly because of the kernel. I mean, Windows is so open to attack that you can go to an actual normal website, before you know it, you've got a Trojan. As opposed to Mac's a lot better at protecting you against that.
Yep. Yeah, Mac has been adopted more recently in businesses. So it's become more of a target these days, but it's based on the Unix kernel. So essentially it is, by nature, it's more secure. But with the, so now you depend on a vendor for the Mac operating system to get patches out, and they get them out pretty quickly. But Windows, they do a pretty good job sometimes not. But I'm not in security anymore and not have to deal with it. But in the time that I spent managing Windows servers, they didn't have that many patches coming out, security patches or anything, and I updated them when they had them. So
that's one thing that's really cool is you've lived through a time where you've got to see the evolution of all these technologies.
Yeah.
To the extent that they are now, and it's phenomenal where it started and where it's come to.
See, one problem we've never had is Dad calling us to ask us how to use his phone.
No, not at all, yeah.
In some cases, we have a computer problem.
We call him, yeah.
Hey, this weird thing's happening. What do you think it is?
Thought about...
Yeah, well, go into command prompt, type this, and do this, and type, and tell me what it
I thought
says.
about calling him today with all this freaking issues I've been having with my phone and my computer. And
Right, yeah.
Gosh, dang.
Yeah, I think the last time I worked on something with you was, about 6 months ago or something with a website.
With a website.
Yeah.
We had a problem with it going live and doing what it needed to do.
Yeah.
And it was something so simple. It was actually something I was like, I knew that, but why didn't I know that?
I need to talk to you about a database.
Yeah.
Because you've already created one for, the dietary supplement stuff. Yeah, the formula stuff.
Oh.
But doing one for the making mead would be...
I think it's generic enough where we could adapt it. So we can take a look.
Yeah. And that would be awesome.
I got an email from Gmail about botanicalvapeproject.com. And we need to log into the Gmail before they delete it. Do you remember that email?
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's like, well, you haven't been logged in at least 8 months. If you don't log in by, I think it was July 2024, we're going to delete it. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that password.
Right.
That's crazy.
That was over a decade ago.
I might remember the password.
Wow.
I mean, we can try.
But yeah, that's pretty wild. Before we go, I want to ask one more question. And this can be somewhat controversial. Not amongst us, but why the Bible? Why believe in the Bible? Why Christianity? Why Jesus? Why?
I can sum it up in a very short amount of time. I have studied other religions, cults. I have a book called The Kingdom of the Cults, and if you want to look that up, it's very useful for a guide into other religions and how they believe. There's also a book from Patrick Glenn called God the Evidence. So essentially, if you want to see the scientific side of the proof of God's existence, he does a very good job of putting together.
I think I have that book.
You might have it.
I've just started reading it.
And the book, it basically is purely scientific, and it tells you very, very deep technical information about the atoms, the compounds, and how everything exists in exact proportions that only support human life. And there is no other explanation for how these things came together, and there's the impossibility of the everything coming together like it did, and there's actually proof, positive. Essentially, the book basically summed up puts the burden of the proof of God not existing.
Yeah, well, that's
on the atheist.
That's impossible to prove, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
the whole idea is that
Right.
nothing exists. Well, how can you prove nothing?
Exactly.
You can't
Yeah.
because it's nothing, right?
Yeah. So essentially, if you sum it up, and this is a testimony and a witness. If you sum it up, there is an old gospel song that basically says that the difference in all other gods is that this God, the God of Jehovah, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, was the only God that gave his son to die for the world's sins. There is no other God.
See you later,
brother.
Mikey. We appreciate you, man.
There's no other God that ever did that in history that's ever recorded. And you can see a lot of similarities of other religions to what's in the Old Testament.
Yep.
And you can see the plagiarism in a lot of cults. So essentially it boils down to the love of God has been was so powerful and is still that powerful today that he gave his son, the one that he really cared about most, that he loved. He gave his son and sacrificed his son for the world's sins, even those that hate him, don't believe in him, or love him. All together, all equal. He loves everybody.
Y'all have a good night. Hey,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, with that, I think we'll sum it up. I think that was that's the best part to end on. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Dad.
Thanks,
We
Dad.
appreciate
Absolutely.
you. We love you.
Love you guys.